So the Blazers are down 3-0, which means their season is over. Congrats to them for getting here, because there was a lot of question on whether they could going into this season. I don't remember being too high on Cantor or Rodney Hood for them, and both of them had their moments for this team, certainly. And now the question is, how does this team get to the next level? Because right now, I think they're certainly in the thick of the Western Conference, but how do they get to that Warriors, Rockets level of things? I mean, number one, they can hope that KD just leaves the Warriors. They can also hope that Chris Paul just falls off a cliff a little bit. Both of those things very possible. But after that, I think, while this team doesn't have all the luxury in the world when it comes to moves they can make, there are things they can do. And the big things are that they now have actual trade assets, specifically in their expiring contracts. Evan Turner making $18.5 million, Mo Harkless $11.5, Myers Leonard making $11, and depending on moves that could be out there, they do have Zach Collins, they do have Nurkic, although Nurkic's injury may put a little bit of a damper on his trade stock. I think they just need more guys who can make plays next to CJ and Dame, because we're seeing in this Warriors series that the Warriors are trapping mainly Dame like crazy, and he's been able to deal with it against most teams, but the Warriors can get to a level that nobody else can, especially when you got Draymond doing those traps. Now, there is also a chance that the guy has hurt a rib. That is a thing. So basically, they just need more dudes who can make plays. I mean, when Aminu is out there, the Warriors are ignoring him completely. Mo Harkless is not bad, but they can ignore him. And I mean, to me, the only other guy here who you can kind of rely on for that sort of thing, whether it's make a play off the dribble, make a jumper, whatever, outside of the main two, is basically Rodney Hood. And I think Hood has made himself kind of a must-re-sign dude for this team. I mean, granted, don't give him too much money, of course, but the amount of double-digit scoring games that he's had for this team, especially some pretty big ones. He had 25 in Game 6 against the Nuggets. He had two pretty decent games, the first two games against the Warriors, including that Game 2 where the Blazers could have won that one. I think he's done enough to prove that with a full off season and maybe being inserted into the starting lineup, Hood can be that third option for this team, being a solid 15 points a game kind of a guy. Now, that brings in another question, which is, what do you do with the rest of the starting five? So, like I mentioned, Aminu has been ignored a lot in this postseason. You could argue that he's been bad ever since maybe Game 5 against the Nuggets or so. Terry Stotts didn't play him almost at all in Game 7 against the Nuggets. Is there a chance that you can move Mo Harkless to the 4 spot and he can give you basically everything Aminu gives you? I am kind of there at that point. I know some Blazers fans want to suggest that Aminu is like the godsend of this team. I disagree with that. He's a good defender. He's a solid rebounder. He's occasionally a nice three-point shooter. But his offense is just almost a zero against any good team. And again, I think Harkless can give you a lot of what Aminu gives you if you moved Harkless to the 4 spot. So, would a starting five of Dame, CJ, Rodney Hood, Harkless, and Nurkic be a nice little pop on offense, because Hood is a way better offensive player than Aminu is, and defensively, you don't even lose much, if anything? I think it's possible. Now, is there a chance that I am underestimating Aminu's defense and I'm overestimating Rodney Hood and Harkless's defense? Yeah, it's possible, but I don't think I am. I could certainly be wrong there. Now, does that mean keeping Aminu anyway? I mean, I don't know. This team is hugging the luxury tax as it is. I mean, before they re-sign anybody, they're at $126 million. The luxury tax is like $134 or something. It's actually $132, so hell, it's a tough sell just to re-sign Rodney Hood if he wanted like $10 million or whatever, so you might have to bite the bullet on that one. But now the other thing to get to is trades. So I don't know who's going to become available. this offseason, of course. But an expiring contract and a first-round pick for most NBA players is a pretty good return. And if it's a very good player who maybe becomes available, then you do have the Zach Collins sweetener or whatever. One thing that I just thought of, which doesn't totally line up once you get to the actual players that would be involved, aka Evan Turner, because the Sixers do not want Evan Turner. But what if it was something like Evan Turner, Zach Collins, and maybe a pick, protected pick, whatever, for Tobias Harris in a sign-and trade, with the idea being the Sixers get themselves a shooting center, which they desperately need, and then the Blazers get Tobias Harris, right? Now again, I don't think that would work because Evan Turner, outside of one game against the Nuggets, sucks and Philly doesn't want him. But something like that, I think, should be what the Blazers are looking for. I mean, in a perfect world, you could hang on to Zach Collins. It would be great if you could get some wing or a set of wings who can make plays, and you can keep your prospect center. But at the same time, I mean, Dame and CJ are getting close to 30, so if you're going to go for it, right now is about the time to do it. But, I mean, just picturing a team like that, whether it's Tobias, someone a little worse that they could trade for, whatever. You know, Rodney Hood making plays off the dribble, making shots off of Dame and CJ. Some other wing who can do similar things, and hopefully you can hold up defensively between Harkless and Nurkic, which I am kind of confident you could do. That might be the way to go. Now, is there a chance for the Blazers to trade for one of the maybe 20 best players in the league or something, or top 25? I mean, who's available? The only guy I could think of potentially would be Bradley Beal, but I think it's going to take quite a lot to get him away from the Wizards. And I think it's safe to say the Blazers do not have the assets for that kind of a move. So it's got to keep on being these little things that don't make a lot of noise in the moment. Although I guess a sign and trade with Tobias kind of would. But something that's not too big, and then once the season starts, everyone's like, oh, that was a pretty good move there. Kind of similar to the Robin Lopez trade they made back in the LaMarcus Aldridge days. Let's see, other random NBA players that I can think of just by looking at a list of NBA teams. I mean, Evan Fournier would be cool, but he's making $17 a year for a few more years, so I don't know if they want to take that on. TJ Warren would be amazing, but I think he's kind of a must-keep dude for the Suns. If you wanted to gamble a little bit on Taurean Prince, it would certainly be the cheapest option, and I do think you could get him from the Hawks. I mean, I guess the rumors of the Kevin Love trade, I think, existed at one point. I would not do it because while his contract isn't god-awful, it is still a little pricey. On top of, I just fear that his defense wouldn't be there. And I'm sure there's other guys, but I can't think of them. Anyway, that's going to do it on the Blazers. They're in a pretty good spot. I expect them to be right in the middle of the West again. 53 wins. Sounds fine. These guys are the model of consistency, and I think they're just good enough to where you're content with, like, running it back every season. I don't think this is a Raptors situation where it's like, oh my god, just get rid of this group already. Plus, you know, Dame is maybe a top 10 dude, and if he's not top 10, he's like number 11, so yeah, I say keep going for it, and eventually you might get it.